Do you remember the first game developer that you ever bothered to learn the name of? When you were just a little lad and you had no idea what any of the funny logos before your game meant. I can tell you mine, Naughty Dog. And it was all because of a little game you might have heard of, Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. The first time I played it was at a friend's house when I was probably about 5 or 6, and I legitimately thought it was a Dragon Ball Z game because all I knew about DBZ at the time was that they had big yellow hair. I was a sheltered little boy, what can I say? But every time you opened up that game, there it was. The Naughty Dog logo. I immediately made the association with that name and quality, cause Jak and Daxter fucking slaps if you weren't aware. A 2001 collectathon that combined action and platforming with awesome characters and an insanely fun world to explore. That was followed up by the drastic change of Jak 2 to a dark sci-fi story that was mainly focused on combat and vehicle mechanics. This was, very clearly in response to Grand Theft Auto, but they did it well, and Jak 2 is considered by many to be the best entry in the series, though I do consider the first one to be mine. It's also really goddamn hard. The main plotline was wrapped up in Jak 3, which was supposed to be the final entry in the series. That doesn't include the spin-offs, which includes the game Daxter, exclusive to the PSP. This game was also really good. I love this series, and to this day, I consider them some of my favorite games of all time, and I'll still sit down and beat them start to finish every so often. Later in my gaming career, Uncharted very easily became a new favorite, and it further cemented Naughty Dog as a titan in the industry. Uncharted 2 might very easily be the best game on the PS3. Fight me on that in the comments. Then of course, we have The Last of Us, the actual best game on the PS3. Fight me in the comments. But then, something changed. Uncharted 4 came out on the PS4 to critical and commercial success, but something felt off. Whereas Uncharted 3 might not have been the strongest entry in the series, it definitely still fit within the framework of the other two games. Uncharted 4, in my opinion, feels like an unnecessary send-off to a character that didn't really need one. It almost felt like after The Last of Us, they wanted to focus more on mature, dark themes and intentionally set the fourth Uncharted apart from the rest of them. They did it well in The Last of Us, so everyone thought this was the appropriate move. Turns out, this was a warning sign. The next game was the game that cemented how the future of Naughty Dog was going to be heading, and that, of course, was The Last of Us 2. If you clicked on a video about Naughty Dog and Jak and Daxter, chances are you've heard of this little indie gem. Love it or hate it, it is undeniable that this game was divisive. A revenge story spurred on by the death of a beloved character that attempts to make the person who committed the act sympathetic and then doesn't proceed to end in revenge. I'm really not sure who this was made for, other than the director of the game, the man of the hour, one of the biggest clowns in the industry, Neil Druckmann. Druckmann began his career at Naughty Dog as an intern, but quickly gained a programming position on Jak 3 in 2004. From there, he would go to work on the Uncharted series, even gaining the position of co-lead game designer for Uncharted 2. No, I don't want to amend my previous statement. After also co-leading Uncharted 4, he was promoted to vice president of Naughty Dog in 2018, eventually working his way up to studio head in 2024. Now, instead of making revolutionary classics, the studio has instead opted to go the Bethesda route and started re-releasing the same game as many times as the market will legally allow. On top of that, it all seems to be funding a game that has basically already soured itself with the gaming community, and it's not due out for another few years. It's really kind of crazy that someone who was initially viewed as a person to keep your eye on in the gaming world got so unbearably pretentiously full of himself that he lost basically all credibility.
But you're way less important. And some of you are not important at all.
But he also had the power to stop the higher-ups from slapping the co-lead title on him to keep his college freshmen in the creative writing program ideas from escaping into the game as a whole. Now, no one could question him, and all he had to do was put himself as the lead to obtain complete creative control. And wouldn't you know it, but as soon as that started to happen, the quality of writing went straight down the shitter. But look, I know that The Last of Us 2 does have its fans, but you know what really doesn't? The TV show. Even after years of the fan base saying, this game's writing is fucking stupid, why did you think killing Joel and then making his killer a sympathetic victim that doesn't get her comeuppance a good idea? And Neil himself saying,
and some of you are not important at all.
I think it's the arrogance that irks so many people. He's just so pretentious, but fails to realize that what he's putting into the story isn't bold or mature, it's divisive and stupid for the sake of trying to subvert not only expectations, but also what you felt about characters you loved from the previous game. You can't have any heroes or characters you like because they're actually all pieces of shit and shouldn't be looked up to. Thanks, Neil. But all that aside, it's time to loop back to the main topic of the video at hand. Jak and Daxter as a series has been dormant for a very long time. There were design docs and concept art for a potential reboot of the series, but they were put aside as the company no longer felt that Jak and Daxter was a series representative of the kinds of games they like to make. Again, you have that artist's pretentiousness of thinking you're too good to make something people love because you're somehow better than it. A not so subtle way of saying that they don't care about the fans they've built up over the years. But instead of doing anything with it, they're just letting a beloved series go forgotten about, letting the IP collect dust.
It's my IP to sit on and do nothing with!
Oh, except for all the times they re-released them. They weren't too good for that. So as it stands right now, the series is dead in the water. But as the title implies, Neil Druckmann, if anyone, is going to be the saving grace for the Jak series. Not because he's going to be the one to revive it. I absolutely wouldn't want him to anyway. But now that he's the studio head, he has to play political ball with Sony and its executives. And you know how stereotypically lenient on poor results those guys are. Sony has recently been giving the axe to any studio under their umbrella that isn't performing the way they think it should be. For, reasons. Yeah. Definitely not hurting for cash after stupid business decisions. If they're willing to shut down a studio that they were also willing to pump $1 billion into, I don't think Naughty Dog is exempt from the chopping block. And with the recent reports of how things are being run over there, it sounds like Neil is in over his head. Recently, they had a massive crunch period just to create an internal demo for their upcoming game, Intergalactic. To me, that just screams, CC, we're doing good, right? Haha. People are gonna love it. And I'm not here to comment on anything about the new game, since we've seen so little about it, but I don't buy for a second that it's going to be free from the Druckmann treatment. But anyway, insane crunch for an internal demo to show the execs is wild, and doesn't bode well for the developmental future for the game, as it isn't set to release for a few years at this point. And if you listen to what some of the team members said about working on The Last of Us 2, I foresee high levels of burnout, leading to the game to be a mess upon release, if it even comes out at all. If Naughty Dog can't make a good product, can't bring in the bacon, or becomes a liability that won't stop hemorrhaging employees, Sony is going to come down really hard on them. Hopefully, hard enough that they dissolve the studio. I mean, really, at this point, would you even care other than for what the company represents in its history? But therein lies the key to this whole video. Once Naughty Dog is dissolved, their IP rights will be sold or given to other studios. Studios that might have a vested interest in reviving an old franchise to see what they can do with it. Insomniac proved that there's still a market for games like this with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Add a few tweaks to the formula and some stellar gameplay, and you've got a winner on your hands. Like I said, there is still very much an audience for these old action platformers, and Jak and Daxter would be an excellent starting point to get new players hooked on the genre and the series as a whole. I think Neil Druckmann's career trajectory is the worst thing that has happened to Naughty Dog, probably in its entire history. A track record of bad writing, disrespect of the audience, and poor management are going to be his and the company's downfall. But from the ashes, something new. Something worthy to take up the mantle of what it means for games to be fun, and not some playable, pretentious art movie. We need someone to cause the downfall of Naughty Dog, so that a developer that cares can potentially pick up the Jak and Daxter series for revival. I know that I'd be the first in line to see any news about it if that were to happen. At the end of the day, it does hurt to wish this would happen. Like I said, the Naughty Dog logo for some fucking reason was something that always stuck with me every time I loaded up that first game. Probably because I thought it was hilarious. But ultimately, I think it's necessary if we ever want to see another game set in this universe. And to be honest, do we really care about anything that Neil has planned for the future? I am completely willing to sacrifice this company if it means that a game series that I adore might have another chance at life. Jak is fun and goofy and at times hilariously edgy.
I'm gonna kill Praxis!
But for whatever reason, the people in charge of telling stories would rather tell the same depressing, divisive, nihilistic narrative we've seen a million times. I, for one, don't think we need any more games like that. But what we do need are games that are focused on fun, that let us turn our brains off and just enjoy. Jump rolling into a high jump and spin kicking while in midair so you turn into a bullet Beyblade. Remember to like the video if you liked it, and let me know in the comments below what you would like to see in a new Jak and Daxter title, or what you think about the future of the studio. You think the new game will be good? Also, don't forget to subscribe. I post every other week, so there's tons more on the horizon. All that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!